did we get here? Well, I've been practicing immigration for it's coming up for 24 years now in Hong Kong, and one of the first or second or third visas that I ever did was an investment visa. And way back then I was essentially fresh out of law school, and at law school they teach you that if you need to find anything that relates to the law, you go to the law library and it's all there for you, and you can work it all out. In my instance, I went to the Supreme Court Law Library and was looking for the definitive guide on Hong Kong immigration, and unfortunately there wasn't anything written on the subject matter whatsoever. So I had to acquire an early sort of expertise incrementally as I went along, and essentially came to understand what it is that the Immigration Department are looking for when they are giving due consideration to applications to foreign nationals to come and establish or join in businesses in Hong Kong. And then in 1996 I wrote the first version of the Hong Kong Visa Handbook, which put out essentially for the first time the kind of information that wasn't previously available to people who were making these applications. And the investment visa then essentially came into its own as regards people having access to the knowledge as to how it all works together. And then the Immigration Department began to sort of consolidate on the approvability test as we've got it today. And then in 2003 they realized that there was a gap in our immigration policy as regards people who wanted to invest into Hong Kong but not start businesses, so passive investments. So in 2003, the Immigration Department introduced a program called the Capital Investment Entrance Scheme, which essentially meant that if you lent, in latter day, 10 million Hong Kong dollars to Hong Kong for 7 years, you could get residency as a result of that action. So it was possible to passively invest in Hong Kong and get residence. Which was a significant and positive adjustment, because prior to that, very, very wealthy people, if they wanted to take up residence in Hong Kong, they had to invest and start up businesses purely for immigration purposes. So between 2003 and 2015, the Capital Investment Entrance Scheme was serving its needs on that front, and the Business Investment Visa was being administered in the normal fashion under the General Employment Policy until on January the 15th of this year, there was a policy announcement essentially out of the blue that says, right, that's it. The Capital Investment Entrance Scheme that was set up with full of good intentions is going to be postponed. There is no new applications from the day after tomorrow. And the reason for that was that in the time since the program began, which was 2003, and as of that date, there had been 24,000 approvals under that visa type, 20,000 of which were mainlanders. And the program was never designed for mainlanders. They also had 20,000 more in the pipeline. And so because ostensibly the Capital Investment Entrance Scheme was set up in the wake of SARS and this idea that we wanted to attract capital to Hong Kong to show that SARS wasn't negative for us, that program had come to its natural life's end. And so the Immigration Department looked at the business investment visa and they said, okay, after some consultation widely in the community, of which I was privileged to participate in, they were going to make a fundamental change in the business investment visa. They were going to recognize that there are essentially two types of businesses today. There's the classic business, such as it's always been, whatever that is and the like, and then you've got this animal called a startup. And that the whole startup culture, in a sense, dictated that there should be some special arrangements as regards those businesses, because they're deemed to be ultimately very high value in due course. But of course, they always start off with very little money, very little resources. And as you'll see, in order to get a visa under this visa type, you have to make a substantial contribution to the economy of Hong Kong. And startups with a 95% failure rate, being very poorly funded from the get-go invariably, are never in a position to positively satisfy that test. So they needed to make special arrangements for startups. And then they said, well, let's look at the entrepreneur visa. Well, the business investment visa, the sort of what's left of it. If it's not a startup, what is it? It's now called an entrepreneur visa. What are some of the complaints that we've had, or positive suggestions that have emanated from the public consultation exercise? It wasn't a public consultation exercise, sorry, it was a private consultation exercise with interested stakeholders being invited to participate. So what's left over? Well, what's left over is the business investment visa. We're now going to call it an entrepreneur visa, but because of complaints that we've had about it being very opaque about what it takes to get approved, we're now going to shed some light on it, and we're going to set out on our website, in our guidebook, the kind of things that are important that need to be addressed in order to be able to satisfy this approvability test. And so now we've got essentially two animals under the business investment visa. We've got the startup, which I'll talk about subsequently, and then we've got the entrepreneur visa.